Hello everyone, this is your host, the Furious Nevermind, I bow to no man. Welcome to the third episode of the Wisdom of FESTER, the MGTOW. First couple were about books, this one will be a response to his response to me. For the record, oh yeah, today's Mother's Day, so if y'all know any mothers, tell them I said what's up. I'm hoping my mom will call me from prison, although she may not. Every time she doesn't call me, I think she only calls me like once a week. So every time she doesn't call me for a while, I think she's dead or something. Cause I didn't grow up with her, around her, and I really don't even know her even now. So I don't know. It's probably like separation anxiety or something weird like that. But yeah, so today's Mother's Day. That's good, I guess. So for the record, there's a book called, because I'm doing a response to a response. I do want to say though, straight out the gate, there is a book called MGTOW Dealing with Women by a gentleman named FESTER something or other. All right. And my question to you, FESTER the MGTOW, is: did you write the book MGTOW Dealing with Women? Because I would totally review it or at least read it. I may still, even if it wasn't you, but I would like to know. Okay, so from what I gathered in your response video to me, you came straight out of the gate with the sentiment that pathos or emotions are more potent in a logically driven world than is logos, adding that the author of Conversations with God was saying the same, if I may paraphrase you too. I personally believe that through concentration on emotional content, the author was intellectualizing his emotions and bringing everything together, thereby. Of late, I've been most intrigued by Kyrios, or as Ecclesiastes 9:11 in the Holy Bible would call it, time and chance happen to us all. Kyrios, in simple words, is one of the modes of persuasion. In simple words, is this: time and place. That's what Kyrios is. An orator uses this to their advantage to persuade the audience to act now at the time being. Finally, ethos is an appeal to authority or credibility of the presenter. It is how well the presenter convinces the audience that the presenter is qualified to speak on the subject. It is my personal opinion that knowledge is information applied. Understanding is knowledge applied. And wisdom is understanding applied. Pretty simple. I've never heard anyone else say it like that, but that's how I use it. Pretty easy. So, thus, one with wisdom is one who embodies the four modes of persuasion, which I've covered. I like how you mentioned the counterproductive war on drugs in your video, mental health and pharmaceutical rackets, and slavery, the slavery system we call prison. I have two family members in prison, my younger brother and my mom, and they get paid like pennies for hard labor and stuff. It's no good. I'm not even 5 minutes into this video of yours and it's bringing the heat. Alright, changes in perspective really are the best way forward, contrary to popular belief. This is largely because if pragmatic or economical or whatever concerns, physical concerns cannot be addressed, then the way people are looking at stuff is most important. And if those things were able to be addressed, the way they would look at them would be irrelevant. So perspective really is more important in its own kind of way. For the record, I listened to all 3 volumes of Conversations with God in a combination PDF, which is cheaper than an audiobook and faster than reading, arguably. Especially because I like to go for a run daily, so what I do is I just listen to books while I'm running. You translated something from that book, Conversations with God, into something that was a little bit more palatable to my own view. that you said that we are here to understand who we are and who we are as God. On its face, this seems contradictory, but the Bible makes clear distinctions between the carnal, sinful outer man and the spiritual, sinless inner man. So you're definitely correct about that, and it's something that I struggle with at times myself. I did not pick the title Wisdom of FESTER the MGTOW arbitrarily, you know. I don't feel love necessarily, and I think of it as an illusion more or less brought on by mental attachment and chemical reactions, but I liked your commentary on the subject nonetheless. The key to it all is sound judgment, or as you called it, discernment, which is what the Bible calls it, and that is where absolutism or objectivism and most of the potential mistakes happen. Immortal beings need good judgment or decision making more so than mortal ones, arguably. I still don't forgive my parents, and I probably never will, even though I understand why they did what they did, for the record, okay? Now, my dad often did literally the worst things that he could get away with, but I see what you are illustrating, and how we are all fallible humans, unfit to judge one another. But straight up, if I could, I'd just suck my dad out or worse. Nonetheless, probably my mom too, just because. As for the mention of a Course in Miracles, which I'm not finished with yet, what they call the dream or an illusion, I would call having a vision for the future or present, and the concept of fantasy. So for them, it's dream and illusion. For me, it's vision and fantasy, whatever. So, after all, one is hard-pressed to entertain the one without distracting from the other, and vision is better than fantasy. The fact is that I don't know, because you said something about people think that they know. I know I don't know, alright? Meaning in the most general sense. And yet, I stopped having conversations with God entirely. Why? I need pragmatic help, and none will arrive, so God is irrelevant to me, as are people. Alright, they're just around. My thinking is that material sustainability occurs before spiritual attainment, and not vice versa, again, contrary to popular belief. Plenty of bums with all the sage-like wisdom and no house, alright? But most people with some money have time to sit around thinking. You see? Moral relativism as a dispositional philosophy, along with its accompanying anti-meritocratic and socialist predilections, is bound to manifest in some people. This manifestation is often atheism or socialism, but not always. For example, due to the natural out-group gender preference in men and natural own-group gender preference in women, effectively, gynocentrism is overkill and is thus the King Midas touch of rust. The following are 3 examples of secular, moral, or ethical systems that claim to be objective. Now, I mentioned this for multiple reasons. One of them is that you said that you're not necessarily religious. Well, here you go. Secular ethical systems that claim to be objective. Namely, utilitarianism, deontology, and virtue ethics. I recommend looking into those 3. Moral laws are not like the laws of physics. Moral statements both express more than an individual's likes or dislikes, which is to say, they express a trend amongst people. And they have truth values, meaning that they may be true or false, although not entirely immutable. Which is to say, yeah, some things are basically wrong and basically right. Sometimes there's exceptions. The following are 3 examples of... oh, I already said that. Right? Okay, so just remember those were utilitarianism, deontology, and virtue ethics. The term Christian, you said you're not a Christian? Wrong answer. You're definitely Christ-like, which is literally what Christian means. FESTER the MGTOW, Sage of the North. Nice try, though. Yours truly has been batting around the idea that love is the only concrete truth and that fear is largely an illusion of misconception. Yet, I'm the only one around to love me. God is incorporeal and other people are physically absent from my life as they have been for most of my time on the earth. As far as present circumstances and interpersonal relationships, or specifically the lack thereof, are concerned, at least. Changing those things largely entails physiological changes on my part and fixing of economic issues which aren't easily remedied. The fact is, I'm unable to bear the risk of child support arrears, nor am I able to pay a woman to care about me. Thus, I'm alone. To me, friendship is just a illusion of circumstance, of happenstance. And mutual benefit, nothing more. So, further, I am frustrated by and resentful toward the mobs of colored people and women who are shoehorned into employment by the government through affirmative action, whilst I and my demographic of Caucasian males are left to the wolves. Okay? We live in a socialist utopia, and I'm expected to ignore it, have no hard feelings about it, let go of hatred, and just play nice blue-eyed white devil, while they look down on me from a place of meritocratic inferiority. And I'm not just saying that. I've talked to people who are dumb as a box of rocks and twice as weak, and they get in where some guy who's even better than I am doesn't. Why, you ask? Because the company doesn't want to get sued into oblivion, or they want to get the extra boost that they get monetarily from accepting affirmative action sponges. That's why you go in a hospital and it's caked with women. It's not because they're smarter and stronger and harder working and cheaper. That's men. I understand white men. I'm willing to back that up demographically, and with evidence as well. So, who's got a problem with that, bring it. I understand that you and what the other sources are correct about these things, though, just the same. All right, you meaning FESTER, the MGTOW, several books that I've read, my mom, a pastor in my city, and a lady on YouTube that I look up to, as well as my own personal insight, all allude to or say the same exact thing. Spiritual love is not an illusion. I don't love myself, and by implication of that which you all have said, I am afraid to love and to be loved. There it is. The things that you are saying about Jesus being an equal to us resonate well with me, as well as that of a person living from a toxic, ego-driven way of life, guilty as charged. And the things that I mentioned in my first two responses, as well as the one in this one, are in their own way making changes in my life. All right, and they're starting to finally make some purchase, shall we say. Although, to be clear, having a healthy ego is a good thing, and some kinds of people would take up the suppression of the ego as a means of attaining power, or at the least virtue signaling, but they simply manifest their ego in a different manner. In place of Freud's superego, ego, and id, Carl Jung recognizes an ego, a personal unconscious, and a collective unconscious. I like his system a little better in that area. But Jung doesn't cover penis envy that I know of, and I believe that that's very much a thing, so I like Freud on that one. In the personal unconscious were to be found various complexes, and in the collective unconscious were archetypal dispositions to think, perceive, and act in a certain way. Beneath the personal unconscious lies the collective unconscious, an obscure religion of sorts. I would call it a belief system. An obscure belief system inherited as a race memory and peopled by archetypes that appear in the same form in cultures widely separated in time and space. The child, hero, birth, death, numbers, God, etc. But the most important archetypes were the persona, the animus, the anima, shadow, and self. The persona is the mask presented by each individual to society. It may or may not conceal the real personality. The anima is the feminine part of the man, which evolves as a result of a man's experience with women, but also recognizes the bisexual nature of all human beings. I want to stop there and say this. People aren't bisexual, people are sexual. And what they're actually saying is that can be distributed however. But they conflate that with bisexuality, which is a draw to rather than a pushing away, right? So the idea is like, my sexuality is just going to go where it's going to go, you know, rather than me being necessarily attracted to men. I'm just feeling like if my sex drive is real high, if I'm horny and there's a man around, maybe, you know, my sexuality be put toward that man, maybe not. But the point is, I don't think we're bisexual, I just think we're sexual, and they're just conflating stuff. But hey, you know, can't win them all. So the animus is the masculine part of the woman. Again, with the masculine and the feminine, that's not necessary, really. You could just say softer, harder, blah, 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 right? It's just a way of labeling the thing. So the anima is, or animus is the masculine part of the woman, the anima, the feminine part of the man. The shadow is the reverse of the shadow is the reverse of the outward personality we show to the world. The self is the most important archetype and holds all the other systems together. Achieving oneness and self-realization, individuation, Jung called it, is a long process and one not reached until middle age, if at all. Individuation process. Usually we avoid matters by projecting the contents of our personal unconscious onto other people and events. But first we have to confront and assimilate the shadow archetype, very important to remember, and then the anima, or animus if they're a woman. The anima may have a positive or negative influence on us, but it is always difficult to accommodate. Indeed, there are stages, perhaps symbolized by Eve, Helen, and Virgin Mary, and the transcending wisdom of Septintina. Few reach the last stage. An attention predominantly directed toward the outside world is termed extroverted, and when directed toward the inside is termed introverted. But the personality is always made up of exterior and interior elements, as the ego and personal unconscious operate in direct opposition. Important to remember. Pride, the id, humility, the ego, the wise old man, and the shadow. None of us are above the fray. The beast is you, and you are the beast. To deny it simply gives it power. You asked me the question. The Bible says that you shall not steal. And I agree, you said. But now put yourself in the context that you are stealing. And you are not even wanting to steal, but you end up in the situation where you have a starving child on your hands, and your options, the only options you've really got in the moment are, do I let this child starve or do I find a way for it to eat? So you steal. If you steal in the name of feeding a starving child, do you do something wrong? Was that something immoral? Was that sin? Or were you just doing what you thought was the most loving action that you could do given your circumstances? My answer, yes to all the above. That literally happened to me on multiple occasions when my brothers and I were homeless as minors, because I didn't know that there were shelters for minors and no one bothered to tell me. Whatever, like, I don't expect anyone to care, especially because I'm a boy and white. Oh yeah, nope. So we were homeless essentially because I got tired of being beat on and I was going to kill my dad, so I decided to run away. My brothers insisted on going with me, and there it went. So my answer is yes to all the above. I felt horrible about it, but every other method that I tried beside that, asking politely, looking for charities, doing what I could, I didn't know like stuff and I didn't have access to the internet either. and it was just, I had to have a parent sign off on my library card, so I couldn't even do that. Basically just Nowheresville. So, but you said, oh, I work for a living, and so I never had to deal with that. Well, guess what? I did, so I can tell you firsthand, yeah, not only would I steal, but I'd feel bad about it too. So your question is an example of ethical relativism, okay, based entirely upon circumstance, all right, which is an instance of a current belief. This is the opposite of a disposition. And I primarily refer to ethical absolutism or objectivism by contrast, at least in this video. You know, like way of life versus exception to the rule or a specific situation. So, qualified or unqualified subjectivism and objectivism, as well as relativism and absolutism, may be understood the way that Albert Einstein's theory of relativity looks at time itself, namely as generally relative and relative one to another. You are right about my not interacting enough with the community, whatever that may mean, to have compassion on other people, relatively speaking. Other than my economic and personal problems, I'm literally ashamed to show my face, alright? That has a lot to do with it. So compassion is not the same as empathy or altruism, though the concepts are related. While empathy refers more generally to our ability to take the perspective of and feel the emotions of another person, compassion is when those feelings and thoughts include the desire to help. That's been my biggest issue. Why bother helping? No one's going to help me. But nonetheless, that's the issue. Aside from the previously stated, my takeaway from your enlightening video response is this. Either I will continually grow in compassion, embracing life, or I will continually grow in antipathy, embracing death.